Minister, carbon tax is supposed to be an environmental tax, a tax to drive behavioural change when it comes to the use of fossil fuels. And in such circumstances, the most effective tax is the one that brings in little revenue because it's doing what it should do, namely drive behavioural change. Take the plastic bag tax. It was so successful that it soon became a problem, as one of the key concerns of government was, what do we do to get more revenue? The focus of environmental taxes should never be on revenue, it should be on motivating behavioural change. And the current carbon tax model is flawed in this way because the goal is about bringing in more taxes that are sadly being used, at least in part, to replace spending lines across government. If we're serious about moving away from their dependence on fossil fuels, then we need a model of carbon taxation that is actually fluid. And what I mean is a model that takes into consideration the ever-changing cost of a barrel of oil. Carbon taxes should vary with the cost of a barrel of oil because even if carbon taxes increase significantly, but the price of oil collapses, then it will not bring about the type of step change that we actually require. Take, for example, that it was believed a decade ago that carbon taxes that were then introduced would drive the type of change needed in our economies. But that was based on a projected increase in the price of a barrel of oil before shale fracking technology and other factors distorted the market. So the price of Brent crude oil went from $114 a barrel in June 2014 to just $20 a barrel in January 2016, undermining that policy tool. At the opposite end of the spectrum, when the price of a barrel of oil increases sharply, this has a direct impact on the cost of living for families, as well as having a devastating impact on a small, open economy. And we're seeing that impact today because we're more exposed than most EU countries to oil price volatility. As I say, carbon taxes should be fluid. For every increase in the price of a barrel of oil, the carbon tax should be lowered to lessen that impact of that increased cost to consumers and families, providing a practical measure to address the impact of inflation. And the opposite scenario should also apply. For every decrease in the price of oil, the tax should be increased by a defined amount. And yes, we should have a clear trajectory to ensure that we have a carbon tax rate of not less than €100 per tonne by 2030. But in my view, this is best given effect by setting a minimum effective floor price for a barrel of oil at €210 per barrel in 2030. With an associated trajectory developed from now out to 2030. And we should ask the OECD to develop such a model in conjunction with the government. We've introduced minimum pricing of alcohol, so why not introduce it for oil? But on this occasion, let's not hand the additional money back to the oil companies themselves. By setting a floor price for a barrel of oil that increases incrementally up to 2030, we can decouple production from the retail price of oil and its resultant impact on inflation. Moving to a minimum floor price for petrol, diesel, home heating oil and gas ensures that such taxation measures are less vulnerable to short-term volatility in commodity oil prices, thus less likely to place undue financial hardship on Irish families when oil prices spike. This would also act as a powerful signal for private sector investment decisions, orientating them towards decarbonising options rather than just hedging against oil price volatility. The novel approach that I'm proposing would also address the risk of falling fossil fuel prices that can undermine the policy move away from fossil fuels. This will achieve our policy objective of driving behavioural change and also, importantly, reduce our global economic reliance on fossil fuels.